There's a new play at the Huntington Theater Company that's hitting close to home. It's about a television news anchor who goes rogue. WGBH News arts editor Jared Bowen tells us why this show has a prayer to make it.
The new play, The Power of Duff, finds Charles Duff down and out. He's a weathered, disenchanted anchorman at the third-rated station in a low television market. With nothing to lose and mournful over the death of his father, he spontaneously ends his nightly newscast with a prayer. Then he does it again and again. It's a move that doesn't fly well with his colleagues or station management until audiences the world over begin vociferously supporting this unlikely prophet. On Open Studio, I recently spoke with actor Jennifer Westfeldt, who plays Duff's co-anchor, a woman surprised to find herself moved by his religious messaging.
I think it forces her to question her own life and a lot of what's been happening at home and her choices and whether or not she's living deliberately. And I think that the play raises some great questions about faith and whether or not there's a God or whether or not there's a distinction between spirituality, religion, humanism, where all of these blurred lines are.
Not to mention, as Duff also poses, where and why people suddenly find religion.
And Jared Bowen is here. Well, this is something that isn't done in the news business, trying not to mix the two. It's even difficult sometimes for journalists to report on religion because their own beliefs can get... So did it make you feel uncomfortable in a sense?
It didn't make me, of course it's fiction, so, as somebody who's been in news for 15 years myself, I knew that you wouldn't do it, but I kept thinking about Oprah throughout this production. And here's somebody who was an iconic media person, like this person is in this, Charles Duff is in this small market. And Oprah used her platform to deliver a spiritual message. And there's one great line in the play where Charles Duff says, once he starts to see that he's gaining traction and people really are responding, he says, I just want to move the world. Well, that's basically what Oprah said. And she, to some degree was also a prophet. She had people following everything that she had to say. They read all the books that she espoused. She sort of trained people to have her way of power in thinking and positivity in thinking. So that's sort of how I entered this play, is that the media today really has this power. If you have this one figure who decides to do something somewhat different and a little bit radical, there will be followers.
Oprah, of course, being on the entertainment side, though, and therein being a big difference.
Right, and not, simply a journalist. And I think that's sort of what makes the play fun, is that you have this person who's rubbing up against everything that's known to be sacred.
Yeah. All right, I'm also going to bring into the discussion now Tom Connolly. He's a professor at Suffolk University who specializes in American popular culture. Welcome, Tom.
Nice to see
you. So you have some other examples of people who kind of accomplished this.
The first example I thought of was the 1976 movie Network, and Howard Beale, played by Peter Finch, the mad prophet of the airwaves who famously said, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And at first the network wanted to take him off, but when the ratings improved, he became the most important voice in America until the time when his ratings went down and he was shot on the air.
Yeah.
Very prescient
that'll do it.
Script. But there's always been an ambiguous, troubled relationship between religion on stage or in the media or in popular culture. The image of George Washington praying at Valley Forge has become an ongoing topic of debate. Did that really happen? Other instances where religion has intruded or been embraced by popular figures. The show Touched by an Angel, starring Roma Downey, who is deeply religious. Her co-star, Della Reese, is an ordained minister. There are people who resent Roma Downey for leaving her brilliant stage career and taking on this role of bringing God to millions of people all over the world. She and her husband, Mark Burnett, the creator of Survivor, have created this Bible miniseries on the History Channel, which is garnering a lot of viewers, and they want to make it bigger and bigger and bigger. In the 50s, of course, a mainstay of Hollywood was, Bible epics like the Ten Commandments, which, still run every year. And people now watch that, I think, for some camp value, but there's still the idea that it should be treated seriously. But even when performers do treat it with a certain reverence, there will always be people in the audience who are put off by it because it's, after all, it's only TV.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've talked about this in our newsroom too. I mean, there's kind of a blurred line between bully pulpit and somebody like Glenn Beck or maybe Bill O'Reilly, and somebody who really has the ears and hearts of America. I mean, they've both tapped into something for sure,
yes.
but it's...
Well, I mean, one of the things that I found really interesting about the play is that it's a new play and it's coming out at this moment, and you find these people the world over, you're literally going to the station because there's somebody delivering a message that they want to hear, and it's sort of, I see this happening everywhere. I also saw this right after everybody gathered to send money to that homeless man who found the bag outside of Best Buy, and I thought, this is a moment where we're all gathering in really different ways. So what is it that's triggering sort of this impulse to gravitate to something? And of course, social media plays into it, and the media itself plays into it by creating these stories as the station in this situation capitalizes on the traction that he's getting. So I think there is something to this moment where we're seeing people, a population gather like this.
The most notorious example I can think of is the so-called radio priest from the 1930s, Father Coughlin, who started out just sermons on the radio, his local radio station out in the Midwest, and then he started injecting political commentary into it. And at the beginning, he was very much for the New Deal, for the social welfare programs, but he started to turn against it, and it became clear that not only was he against Roosevelt, he was against, the international conspiracy, and then he came right out and became an anti-Semite and was tied up with the America Firsters. But he actually ran for president and had millions of people listening to him. There were times when he was the most widely listened to program in the country, not consistently. But he had a very good speaking voice, a very good radio presence. And it's interesting, the more popular he became, the more strident he became. And when he started to veer too far from his original religious roots, he lost his following and became a crank.
Because, I mean, people like Rush Limbaugh, I mentioned the other two earlier, they've been pretty much consistent. They haven't gone... Well, Glenn Beck may have gone too far. That may have cost him his job.
A lot of people, when I was reading about this, compare Glenn Beck to the Howard Beale character from Network, that he has that same kind of intensity and that same prophetic air. I mean, Glenn Beck, I mean, even the costumes he puts on, he adds to his aura, not just as a newsman or even an opinion maker, but something more than that. And that's one of the things people also find more disturbing about him than, say, Rush Limbaugh.
And we also see that these are, as this play illustrates in this situation too, these are situations of the moment, and they sort of have their life cycle and then they pass. And as Jennifer Westfeld was talking about, people have to examine within themselves why, and this is what's so interesting, the character studies in the play, why people react like they do.
All right, sounds good. All right, Jared Bowen, thanks so much. Tom Connolly, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right, that does it for Greater Boston. Polls close in about a half an hour. Tune to 89.7 WGBH Radio starting at 8 for complete coverage as returns come in, and join us here tomorrow for in-depth analysis of the outcome. I'm Emily Rooney. Thanks for watching.